Across my time making music, I've fallen in and out of love with Eurorack synths many times. The older I get, the more precious time can feel, being busy with many things. And that sort of uncertainty if I'll create anything usable for my music projects feels a bit higher risk with Eurorack than some other options at times. But it's also less robotic in some ways, which it's ironic given the way that it looks. I don't ever truly know what's going to come out of these things with just subtle dial turns, and I don't always approach it the same way like I often do working on a computer with VSTs and plugins. It's harder to replicate from something when I don't even know what it is I'm searching for to begin with. And there's something beautiful in that. This is the Phase LFO from Tembra Modular. It's a wavetable LFO unit that gives you 4 outputs, obviously with a focus on phase shifting signals. So the 4 outputs are marked as 0, 45, 90, and 180 degrees. Let me plug a couple sound sources in here so that we've got something to listen to. We'll go into 0 and 180 degrees and turn these up on the VCA. Okay, so basically in the top right, you have a slider that controls the relative phase shift, which has a detent in the middle that marks 0 degrees. So right now I've got a DPO oscillator from Make Noise that I'm sending 2 different sound waves from into the Optimix VCA, and that's ultimately where these phase LFO outputs are affecting the amplitude or volume of the sound that you're hearing. It probably sounds like one oscillator, but if I move this slider, you'll hear the 2 waves sort of separate all the way to 180 degrees opposite of one another, and then back the other way. Right now I'm using the 180 degree output, but if I switch it to 90 so you can hear the waves a bit closer together, right, so less of a separation. We'll go back to 180. Cool, you've got a rate slider in the middle that controls the speed of the LFO. And you've also got a slider on the left to move through different LFO shapes in the wavetable. Nice and simple, right? As usual, feels like it wouldn't be modular if you couldn't control those parameters with external control signals, so you do have CV inputs to modulate each of those 3 parameters. And finally, we've got 2 buttons in the lower left corner. So one is the range button. This toggles between green or -5 volts to +5 volts for the output signals, and red, which goes from 0 to +10 volts, so you can hear the outputs get a bit more aggressive here. Okay, and then the bank button has 2 different functions. If you just quickly press it, you'll cycle through the 5 different wave banks, and you can see the designated LED lights next to it show which bank you're in. So bank 3, bank 4, and bank 5. And then Tembra Modular also says there is a 6th bonus bank, which is titled Shuffled Waves, or sort of like more random. Lastly, if you hold the bank button, you're able to adjust the LFO rate ranges. So then you just short press to sort of cycle through the 3 different options as the LED indicator flashes, and you can get pretty slow or change it faster. And then just hold it to confirm. So just using kind of the basic functions here, I'm going to use the DPO and see what I can create for some distortion bass samples. So obviously this isn't a unit that inherently makes sound on its own. It's more of a modulation source within the context of a Eurorack system. But despite that, I still like to take these opportunities as sort of an excuse or inspiration to create something new. So I've been having a lot of fun with the Osmos Expressive E keyboard recently. Just think that's just a beautiful keyboard for creating organic sounds and different like layered textures within the context of a song. And so I had this idea, if I put together a small Eurorack case with some like granular modules, loopers, delays, that sort of thing, and just see how much further I can process some of the sounds coming out of the Osmos keyboard using this phase LFO module as sort of a modulator. What we got to do is put together a small case here real quick. Alright, so before we call it a day on this kind of new song start, I wanted to take the drum loop that I've created, process it a little bit further with some modules here in this little case, the data bender from Qubit Electronics, also the micro clouds in the beat repeat firmware, and use this phase LFO with the 4 different outputs to see if I can sort of glitch the drums or just kind of stutter the pattern a little bit, make it a little bit more interesting for about a 4-bar loop or so, and just primarily utilize the modulation capabilities of this to make that happen. I've got the drum loop all set up on the black box, so we just got to patch this thing together. All right, let's put it together. I used to argue it doesn't matter what tools or instruments are used in the creation process because the people listening likely won't have a clue or really care for that matter. And while I still believe a big part of that, it sort of undercuts the creative journey, and there's often originality in how things came together, and that is often where the inspiration sits. Maybe in a time where so much of the creative art space feels under siege by AI advancement, it's worth it now more than ever. Less replication, more exploration, if only for myself in that space in its own right. I'd like to believe no matter how many things pull time away, I'll still make time for sitting down to a keyboard from time to time, or patching these Eurorack modules together, exploring sounds. Okay, so what are my thoughts on this module? I don't know if you guys noticed that I positioned this directly next to the Batumi LFO from Chaos Devices, which I've also done a video on previously, mainly because of some of the similarities between the two units. I think it's pretty obvious the Batumi has a bit more functionality packed into it, but it's also more than twice the price tag of this phase LFO from Tembra Modular. So when you factor in the 6 HP small footprint, the fact that it still does this phase shift between the 4 different outputs for these LFOs, which has a number of different use cases in any Eurorack system, I would argue, at a small $145 price tag. I don't see this kind of thing going out of style, right? I don't think it's similar to like oscillators or sequencers, samplers, different units that I think you can kind of outgrow or get tired of, maybe the way that something inherently sounds functionality-wise, or the workflow of a particular sequencer. With something like this, I just don't think that you can have too many modulation sources within a Eurorack case or your collection. So in that context, I think it's a great investment for anybody. So yeah, overall, I appreciate Tembra Modular for sending this over for me to check out, giving me a little bit of inspiration. That's about it for this video, guys. I hope you got something out of this. If you want to hit the Bandcamp link in the description below, you can check out some of my music or check out some of the new merchandise that I've got made on there. It would be really appreciated. Otherwise, if you guys have any questions or comments, leave them down below and go make some new music.